An atomic disintegrator? If I had it in my possession, nothing could stop me. Officials of Metropolis, here's interesting news for you. Superman is going to attempt to steal the crown jewels from the Reynolds building.
Speak! What have you to report?
Your plans have been carried out. The war will be prolonged.
The way that guard looks at me, it's not like the others. It must be that you're not under Luthor's hypnotic influence.
Hello, and welcome back to the Almanac Comicopia, your guide through the original DC universe. Find yourself something healthy, something hydrating, and settle in for our last Superman video for quite some time. Our first story this episode is from the Sunday Classics. It's called Mindless Slaves of Dr. Grout. Shuster is abetted by Paul Cassidy and Paul Loretta on the inks. Notably, I've decided to include this as Shuster and Siegel's work because the base artwork, the pencils, was done by Shuster, unlike some of those issues of Action Comics or some of those daily strips.
As Lois and Clark pass the Metropolitan National Bank on their way to the Daily Planet, two gunmen dash out.
Do something, Clark!
Lois knows Clark isn't as bumbling as he seems, independent of any Superman-related suspicions. Recall that with the Royal Death plot, Clark saved the day himself on the pier. Yet, he takes the pistol whip and allows the men to escape. When Clark goes up to editor Taylor to inform him of the story he just wrote up about the robbery, Taylor merely tells him there's something more important afoot. He then introduces Clark to Mrs. Jasper, a woman with a strange story to tell.
A year ago, my husband applied to the Benson Employment Agency for work. They placed him in an out-of-town position, and I haven't heard from him since. I'm afraid something terrible has happened.
Isn't it possible that he, deserted you?
Way to go, Clark. You're so likable. Mrs. Jasper ignores the remark and explains that she knows other women whose husbands were hired by the same company and who also disappeared. Editor Taylor conducts a little research in the planet's files. He discovers that this company always hires a great deal of men, and always around the same time. So he sends Clark to check things out. Clark is immediately hurried out by an unknown employee, which prompts him then to change into Superman. Nice art in this strip. Back inside as Superman, the employee still refuses to cooperate. Thus, you see Clark hangs him out the window.
Shall I release you now?
No! Pull me back! I'll tell you anything you want to know! A certain Emil Rajek comes here once a year to hire able-bodied men. He's tall, dark, heavy-set, has a long scar across his cheek. He's now at the Benton Hotel.
The next panel shows a man with strange, gleaming eyes akin to the bank robbers as he inches towards the Benson Employment Agency window. Suddenly, he's in the window, assassinating the helpful employee. Strangely, the man says aloud, "I obey," before shooting himself too. What's Clark's next stop? The Benton Hotel, of course. There, Soup spies Rajek talking on a futuristic video chat device with an unknown man, who explicitly doesn't mind Rajek explaining that Benson had to be eliminated. Soups is so engrossed in the conversation, he loses concentration on his grip on the brick, making noise. This is much better than like the lowest purse drop. I really can buy into this. Anyway, Clark's lucky Rajek never looked up. Moving on in our tale, Clark poses as a laborer to infiltrate the next recruitment round. Most who sign up are wowed by the $75 weekly paycheck, and for good reason. That's over $1,700 a week in 2024 bucks. However, all is not as it seems. The fine print of the contract states that the agency is
not responsible for the employee. And there's no mention of the type of work the men are to do. Now I know this is a phony setup.
Hours later, the laborers arrive, and upon exiting the bus, Clark notices a bird which was electrocuted recently on the perimeter fence. Inside, one Dr. Grout, Reject's associate, hypnotizes all the men but Clark. Now,
The men, helpless to protest, are forced to do back-breaking labor.
a short while later, Clark and the other fittest laborers are pulled in by the evil Grout. They're instructed to assassinate Governor Carling, then commit suicide promptly afterward. I love this panel on the right-hand side. What a terrifying man. We fast forward a day or so to the assassination attempt. Clark has slipped away to change into Superman. So when Reject signals the hypnotized men, he is able to swoop in and catch every bomb.
Up into the air, he hurls the bombs, where they explode harmlessly.
The crowd notices that the would-be bombers are trying to commit suicide and heroically throw themselves at these men trying to stop them from doing so. I think this is one of the more moving moments in Shuster and Siegel's work so far, although it's just this tiny little panel. Back at the compound, Reject is panicking, informing Grout of their failure.
You say a man with super strength? I've heard of a being named Superman. But no, he must be a myth.
Clark makes short work of the criminals, threatening Grout with death if he doesn't break the hypnotism. The story ends, as most do, with Clark and Taylor in Taylor's office, and Taylor questioning how Superman got involved, as he always does. I'm seriously invested in the first time someone gets suspicious of Clark, but it clearly isn't happening yet, and I am certainly not the target audience for the brand of humor that keeps cropping up in these last panels. What do y'all think? Is this a product of the times? Is it just not my particular fancy? Is it a callback to an even older trade of humor? You let me know. Next up is Action Comics 21 by Shuster and Siegel with ink support from Cassidy.
As he walks toward the Daily Planet, Clark Kent, ace reporter, sights the side of a building collapsing. Swiftly, he tosses the pedestrians near him to safety, but is buried beneath the debris himself.
Interesting. Clark won't expose himself if he knows that someone he knows is present, like last story with Lois. But here, in front of strangers, just like in Royal Deathplot, he'll put heroism first before his secret identity. A man with a laboratory offers Clark first aid. Clark quickly changes the subject when faced with some suspicion.
That's odd. You haven't a scratch.
I see you have a well-equipped laboratory. Could you possibly have had anything to do with?
You've guessed it. The explosion was my fault. But it was entirely accidental. My name is Derek Curtis. For some time I've been on the track of harnessing atomic energy. Today, in the midst of my experimentation, there came that terrific explosion.
The EPA guy from Ghostbusters would have a conniption meeting Mr. Curtis. Clark returns to the planet, gives Taylor the story, yada yada yada. Meanwhile,
In a distant spot, Ultra, who had miraculously survived his last encounter with Superman, reads the article with interest.
An atomic disintegrator? If I had it in my possession, nothing could stop me. Nothing.
I guess I should explain here that last issue, in Action Comics 20, Superman and Ultra tussled once again. But only after it was revealed Ultra had kidnapped and then performed a mind swap on movie star Dolores Winters, who you see now. I'll use he, him pronouns for Ultra. Unless he starts referring to himself as a woman, I'm just trying to respect the identity, y'all. Ultra uses his new appearance to take advantage of the well-intended Curtis. Here you see him purportedly attempting to free a cat, and Curtis helping. Then, they speak on a park bench, where he reveals his interest in Curtis's atomic disintegrator. Later, excluded from this slide, Ultra schemes that he and Curtis will indeed meet tomorrow night, but in a most unexpected manner. The next evening, Clark pops by Curtis's before Curtis's outing, remarking on his sudden interest in his appearance.
On to meet the loveliest girl in the world tonight. She resembles Dolores Winters, the actress.
Ultra shows up after Clark departs. Then, after visiting for some time, he
attempts to steal a copy of Curtis's plans.
Put down that paper.
What do you mean?
Curtis calls him out. So Ultra draws a pocket pistol and calls in backup.
Shortly later, atop the building, Ultra forces Curtis into a fantastic autogyro and wings off into the night.
It's far too late when Clark realizes.
This girl resembling Dolores might possibly be Ultra. I may be wrong, but I must warn Curtis at once.
Once he arrives, he finds the lab ransacked, utterly destroyed. Now,
Within Ultra's stronghold,
You will continue to work here. Either conclude your experiments within a week or die.
I won't do it.
yet, once Ultra subjects Curtis to a torture ray, he swiftly changes his tune. We skip forward a week, during which you could imagine the Reject and Grout story taking place if you'd like. Here, we find Clark wondering about Terry. Around this very time, Ultra uses his phone tech to breach the broadcasts, announcing,
$2 million is to be delivered to me, or else I will destroy your city and every living soul in it. As a sample of my power, I will destroy the Wentworth Tower at 2 p.m. this afternoon.
This prompts Clark to take action as Soups. For some reason, Clark internally decided he's helpless to do anything about the situation. Despite arriving early, he merely comments,
A few more moments and it'll be the fatal hour.
at exactly 2 o'clock, a strange airship appears over the Wentworth Tower. As a ray from it engulfs the massive edifice, the tower commences to crumble down toward the horrified spectators below.
Clark's on ripple prevention, I guess. I get it. Not shown is him leaping down to a building, holding it erect until everyone is out of harm's way. Now,
A terrific leap launches the Man of Tomorrow up into the sky in pursuit of the fantastic air vessel.
when he's close enough, its pilots attempt blasting him.
But the Man of Steel twists aside, eluding it.
Aware and glad that he is now the plane's focus, Clark baits it to swoop low, smashing it with a huge boulder. Is this left panel the most Superman-looking Superman we've gotten so far? I say yee, but you let me know. Clark lands atop the plane amidst this confusion, seeking to sneak it into Ultra's lair. But the super genius has long-range optics, seeing Clark from miles away.
The plane descends within an extinct volcano's crater and enters a glass-sheathed city.
What the? Huge metal robots? What a reception.
Of course, as cool as it is to see our first Golden Age robots, excluding Electro, who is modeled after a real exhibit, we already know that they will pose no challenge whatsoever to Superman. Clark makes his way to Ultra's lab in no time at all. He's about to storm Ultra when...
Stay back.
You'd better obey your friend.
She's rigged up a photoelectric beam across the room. If you break it, the city of Metropolis will automatically be destroyed.
You see, Superman, in me, you've met your match. Now go, while you can.
I came for Curtis, and I refuse to leave without him.
Incredibly, Ultra breaks a deal with Soups. He will steal valuable crown jewels for Ultra, and Ultra will release Curtis. I'm glad we've already established that Clark isn't wise, because I barely batted an eye at this stupidity from him. En route, Clark has no idea that Ultra is tipping the Metropolis police off.
Officials of Metropolis, here's interesting news for you. Superman is going to attempt to steal the crown jewels from the Reynolds building. I thought you'd be interested.
Back in Metropolis, Clark is confronted by a small army. Ultra's plan is succeeding.
My gosh, it looks as though the entire city turned out to welcome me. I don't wish to harm any of you, and so I suggest you offer no resistance.
Come down from there.
In a spot of wisdom and clarity, feeling the pressure rising, Clark thinks to use the hydrant's own. He then starts climbing a building. Oh my god, in a fit of insanity, from
Atop the building,
a group of men drop a frickin' safe off the roof in a desperate bid to stop Superman. Better yet, Clark risks their lives, throwing the safe blindly back up at them.
Holy cats! Scatter!
Ooh, oh man, look how low our hero sinks for a friend. Curtis is but one man. And look at all the collateral risk Soups has created. Holding a man by his rifle off the skyscraper's roof, he bluffs. Let us hope it's a bluff.
Keep back, all of you, or your commander's liable to find a long drop to the street.
Oh god, holy cats indeed! Clark's entire future as Superman hinges on this guy not losing his grip on the rifle. The men back off, giving Clark the space he needs to drop down through a skylight, tank a hail of machine gun rounds, and then escape with the crown jewels. He's following through on this even though he's been betrayed. Oh, he's so stupid! Superman makes his way to the glass-sheathed city, only to find himself in a trap with
Diamond drills. So it's a double cross, eh?
The surge of his powerful abdominal muscles and the diamond drills, hardest substance on Earth, are shattered.
Then, Soups narrowly avoids another blast from a disintegrator, while a heroic Curtis takes Ultra in a sleeper hold, preventing him from reaching the Metropolis detonation switch. Clark uses this moment to destroy the machinery, somehow knowing it wouldn't activate from the blast. Oh dear. With Superman entirely fixated on destroying the dangerous tech, Ultra manages to escape out a window. To make extra sure that he did a good job, once Superman escapes with Curtis from the city itself, he stands on the volcano's rim and rains boulders down into the volcano in an attempt to activate it. He succeeds, by the way. The comic then ends unceremoniously with the duo back in Metropolis and Soups suggesting that Curtis forgets he ever succeeded in disrupting an atom. Before we move on, I want to soberly comment that this comic was published before there was public knowledge of the Manhattan Project, which makes Clark's words weightier than they would have otherwise been when we look back at this issue. And perhaps this also justifies the collateral risk that Superman engaged in. He could have thought that the tech would end the world. We don't really know. We don't live in a pre-atomic world. Moving on once again, we'll be skipping Action Comics 22 since, like number 20, Paul Cassidy did all the art. Number 23 picks up where number 22 left off though, so I will summarize that real quick. Toran, a fake European stand-in for Nazi Germany, invades Galonia, a fake European stand-in for Poland. Lois and Clark are sent by the planet to cover the war, but get involved personally when they catch a false flag operation in the works. When Clark disappears as Superman to investigate and manage the situation, Lois finds herself reporting from the front lines, making this an important moment in the Superman canon. And I'll admit I'm somewhat remiss not to be covering it, but I do have to narrow my scope somehow. Issue 23 begins with a bang. Clark and Lois are currently on the front lines, reporting together.
As they walk through the seats of Belgaria toward an important interview, a shell unexpectedly explodes near them. Seizing Lois's unconscious figure, Clark leaps to the safety of a doorway.
This gives him an opportunity to change back to Superman, of course. His first course of action is returning the shells at the battery weapon.
Back where you come from. You're not wanted here.
Actually, that was his only action. He immediately returns to Lois, changing back to Clark Kent. Then,
as Lois revives,
he explains what happened while she was unconscious. Curiously, the General, Lupo, with whom they meet, is confident that Toran will be requesting peace terms in 2 hours' time. Later, with the Toran party on the way, Clark takes advantage of his powers to snap some spectacular photos. Just as he does, however, the vehicle spectacularly explodes. Back in Toran, Galonian soldiers begin an assault. Meanwhile, Clark wonders if Galonia was bluffing. He telegraphs some news back to Terry and co at the planet before moving on with his day. Here, you see Clark visiting Lupo again, who claims that the explosion must have been an accident, But as he departs, Clark overhears Lupo on the phone.
I just got rid of that suspicious reporter. No one will ever guess the truth.
Thus, he decides to trail him as Superman. Things get seriously weird now. Inside a cave that Lupo seemingly vanished into, Supes follows to see him.
Standing at attention before a huge slab of rock. As Lupo rigidly stares at the slab, lights appear, commence to whirl and brighten upon it.
Suddenly, a voice from everywhere and nowhere in particular.
Speak! What have you to report?
Your plans have been carried out. The war will be prolonged.
Lupo turns to find Supes.
Not so fast.
After physically threatening Lupo, he reveals what's going on here.
Momentarily, a squadron of unidentified planes are to invade and bombard a nearby neutral country. Luthor's plan is to engulf the entire continent in a bloody warfare.
But who's Luthor?
Oh yeah, it's time, baby.
Lupo is terror-stricken as, over Superman's shoulder, he sees the horrible face once again materialize on the slab.
Die, traitor!
Abruptly, a green ray stabs out from the slab, slices the stricken general in half. The green ray flashes upon Superman, but the Man of Steel's superior physique enables him to withstand it.
Fool! To think you could oppose!
I have no idea what the word is, I'm so sorry. Swiftly now,
Superman destroys the great slab. The entire cavern caves in upon him.
a pile of rubble is no challenge to Superman. But perhaps the
Squadron of unidentified bombers headed toward the neutral nation.
will be. Clark makes light work of the first gunner, noting.
Odd. Your uniform is entirely unfamiliar.
Clark picks up the gun, shooting down 2 planes before running out of ammo. On the rest of the page, Supes continues his rampage. Having dealt with the pending disaster, Clark now manages to get a meeting with both nations as ambassadors, warning them.
I can't reveal my source of information, but I definitely know that this war is being promoted by a madman who wishes to destroy both warring nations.
Very amusing, Mr. Kent. Certainly you don't expect us to fall for this poorly improvised story.
I'm grateful for the lack of plot armor here.
Within Luthor's secret lair,
He decides to have his goons eliminate Clark. However,
as Lois goes to Clark's hotel room in search of him, she is seized.
instead, now,
Prisoner within a strange plane, Lois is flown to the landing platform of a gigantic dirigible suspended high above Earth in the stratosphere.
whoa! Luthor grills Lois, who knows nothing in earnest. Luthor sends her away, citing that he doesn't have time to deal with her.
Lois is placed under guard, but studying her guard, she notes.
The way that guard looks at me. It's not like the others. It must be that you're not under Luthor's hypnotic influence.
It's true. For some reason unbeknown to me, my mind is able to withstand Luthor's suggestion. But don't reveal this, or my life will be forfeit.
Fool! Lois is cut throat.
Unless you deliver a note from me to Clark Kent, I'll expose you.
I'll do it, but please don't give me away.
Clark, who is faking being asleep, reads the note as soon as the guard leaves him, catching a glimpse of the plane flying almost straight up into the sky. Cue Clark's greatest feat so far, an elephantine leap to the stratosphere. Clark begins dealing with guards aboard the dirigible, before leveraging his X-ray vision to find Lois in the midst of torture. The mysterious face appears again.
I'd advise you not to leave.
I don't fear you. You can't harm me.
But the girl, she is not invulnerable. Either submit, or she dies.
So Clark does. Our heroes are brought to face Luthor, whereupon Superman demands to know.
What sort of creature are you?
Just an ordinary man, but with the brain of a super genius. With scientific miracles at my fingertips,
I'm preparing to make myself supreme master of the world. My plan? To send the nations of the earth at each other's throats, so that when they are sufficiently weakened, I can step in and assume charge.
The only thing you should step into is a straitjacket.
I'm not a rapper.
I'm earnestly disappointed that Luthor is just a clone of the Ultra Humanites at the moment. I also find it strange that he details his plan, since he doesn't seem ludicrously arrogant or insane prior to this moment.
Superman permits himself to be chained to the wall while 4 green rays bore steadily at him.
What's the plan, Clark? Incredibly!
As the rays blast down at Superman, he feels his powerful strength slowly departing.
This was such a good comic until this moment right here. Without foreshadowing, and in direct contradiction to the previously shown panel, Clark suddenly breaks free from the chains and turns the ray on Luthor and go. Luthor dodges, grabs the ray, tries again, and ooh, do I hate this. Despite Clark verbalizing once again,
That ray, it's sapping all my strength.
he is able to muster his strength sufficiently to whirlwind around the room, cleaning things up. Supes abducts Luthor and grabs Lois, making his way to the control room. Once inside, he
Tears it apart with his bare hands.
leaving all aboard to die except himself and Lois. Our story ends with Clark meeting once again with the diplomats, citing the fallen dirigible as evidence. After an anxious wait, one of them comes out to report to Clark that
The war is over! Armistice has been declared!
the final panel shows Lois and Clark in a park discussing their excitement to return to Metropolis. Boy, do I have some problems with this issue. Oh, did Siegel not think of the collateral damage caused by this fantastically large dirigible crash landing? Are we all registering that Supes willfully murdered men he knew were hypnotized that were serving Luthor? Potentially completely innocent people. Oh, yikes. Okay, let's put that behind us. We'll be returning to the Superman title for a bit now, specifically issue number 4, stories 2, 3, and 4. In the first story, Clark deals with Luthor once again. This time around, Luthor has kidnapped an inventor and hijacked their earthquake weapon. After discovering Luthor's involvement, he challenges Superman to a series of tasks, promising to surrender if Clark is triumphant. Notably, Supes does a propeller leg trick to slow his descent to Earth during this comic. We can imagine him using this in general to avoid falling too hard, but it's shown for the first time there. In the end, Luthor escapes after the tower is destroyed, but the inventor commits suicide out of guilt. It's not really a great outcome for Superman. Again, the story is not included because it's not a Shuster and Siegel collaboration. Our first in-depth look from the issue, Luthor's Undersea City, has uncredited ink assists from Paul Cassidy, as do the other stories from this issue, but Joe Shuster did draw them. The story begins with Taylor assigning Clark a story, as they all do, right? This time around, it's about oil wells flows randomly stopping throughout the world. Strange. Racing to Oklahoma as Superman, Clark catches sight of a giant torpedo-like projectile. As Supes battles this homing torpedo, Luthor's face materializes on it.
I warn you, Superman. Keep clear of the oil well mystery, or die.
The next page features Supes mitigating damage to various oil derricks throughout Oklahoma, while mysterious small earthquakes seemingly seek their destruction.
Meanwhile, Lois Lane has alighted at the Oklahoma City airport.
Finding out immediately, she's missed Superman once again. Later, Lois meets up with Clark. Then, upon entering the Oklahoma Bulletin, the two discover an even greater disaster has commenced.
The entire Pacific coast is inundated under 2 feet of water, and the ocean is steadily rising.
Clark hauls ass, and Lois, to get to the west coast.
But as they emerge from the newspaper office,
Into the car. No sound from either of you.
Again? Jerry. How many times is this gonna happen? These are Luthor's men, and hypnotized or not, they gleefully admit to their murderous intentions. Clark is left little choice but to knock Lois out so he can take action. While reading this scene, I just kept thinking, I have no clue how Clark's gonna explain all this to Lois. He goes full Superman mode, tanking bullets to the skull, crushing metal like putty, eventually causing the roadster to crash with the goons still inside.
With but seconds to act, Clark seizes Lois and leaps away as the car plunges off the road to destruction.
Rack up that kill count, Clark. Why not? There's no going back to purity now. At a nearby airfield, Lois awakes, questioning what happened. Clark tells her the thugs let them off with a warning, and asks her,
What shall we do?
Pay no attention to them, of course.
Damn, Lois, you are so brave. They charter a plane and catch their first glimpse of the disaster. Soon,
Out of the water rises a glass-enclosed city of ancient, weird design.
holy cats!
Look, the glass cover is folding back.
What can that possibly mean?
Lois faints from fright. Then, in an effort to keep her safe, Clark grabs her and leaps away. Oh, however, leaping requires verticality, giving the pterodactyl an opportunity to nab our heroes. Lois is totally zonked, wasted out of her mind when awaking. This prompts Clark to get some water to potentially...
Restore her to normality.
Okay. A giant rat, not Shuster's best work frankly, stalks Lois while Superman is busy. In the time it takes Superman to battle the rat, Lois disappears somehow.
Sighting a weird flying vessel headed toward the nearby city, Superman gives chase.
She must be a prisoner aboard.
Or she wandered off in his dinosaur chow. Damn, Clark, you're really forgetting your X-ray vision here. Luthor's voice booms near the city, warning Clark not to resist, or Lois will meet a gruesome end. Luthor promises, though, to heal Lois given Clark's cooperation. Interesting. Then we see Luthor giving Clark a tour of the city.
How did you create this weird city?
It was created years ago. I merely salvaged it. What you are walking upon is a remnant of the sunken continent, Pasiphae.
Boom. Lore drop. I doubt Pasiphae is gonna ever be mentioned again, but it's still canon. That's pretty cool. Clark concludes that Luthor was diverting the oil for his schemes, and furthermore, that raising the city from the ocean caused the flood. Luthor doesn't care about Clark's realization, merely drawing Clark's attention to his recreated dinos, boasting how they'll help him secure world domination. Luthor is a schemer, claiming,
If you give me your assistance, I will be more inclined to be more merciful with the world. Otherwise...
yeah, right. Inclined my behind, you wicked man. Clark, wise as he is, meaning not at all, needs some time to think on it. Clark's super hearing clues him in on Luthor's planned treachery while sailors spot the city. They radio in to the army, who's ready to deal with the threat by any means necessary, including lethal gas, +1 to the murder count, by the way. Anyone keeping track for me? Luthor issues another challenge to Clark, this time with Lois's life on the line. Why believe him, Clarksy? Why? Watching Supes make such quick work of the dino, Luthor reveals his hand, trying to shoot both him and Lois. At this very moment, American planes begin dropping lethal gas on the city. How come Luthor doesn't have super advanced defenses to mitigate this? Why is he Superman focused already? The beasts descend on Luthor as the city begins to submerge once again. Superman flees hurriedly with Lois in arm. Holy broken glass! Clark's gonna manslaughter all the remaining people in Luthor's city! Lois gets knocked out, convenient, on the trip back, which allows Clark to change back and bring her to a doctor. What is going on with Clark being such a mass murderer, though? Am I being sensitive here? I don't think so. This comic ends with Clark gaslighting Lois, making the scoop, and teasing Taylor about Superman. Typical. There's some fairly egregious writing by Jerry, though. How come Lois has amnesia about the intermediary events of the issue? Blah. Let's move on to the next story, called The Economic Enemy. And I'm not talking about you-know-who. This one opens up with Taylor requesting Clark do an interview on an eminent sociologist about the imminent completion of his manuscript, Prosperity's Foe. Clark visits the man, who says that he can't show the manuscript. In fact, he
Can't trust anyone. I'm about to print documentary evidence that will prove sinister persons or forces plan to deliberately stave off the return of national prosperity.
As Clark departs,
It sounded like a pistol shot, a suicide, and in one hand, a tiny scrap of paper.
This is a scrap of the manuscript. Clark presumes the remainder has been stolen. When Clark's done giving information to the police, he returns to the Daily Planet to find a major stir afoot.
The nation is being paralyzed by a wave of strikes in all major industries. Ships are sinking at sea. Airplanes are mysteriously cracking up. The business world is panic-stricken.
Clark begins to think that the sociologist was correct. He returns to his home to begin searching for clues. Some tough guy enters shortly after. He too begins snooping about.
until the man of tomorrow calmly steps into view. Meanwhile, nearby,
2 other men spy this Louis getting caught. They phone their boss, who tells them to call the cops on their ally. Inside, Clark threatens the crook, but to no avail since the cops show up right quick. Superman flees, giving the men a chance to silence their former comrade. He gives chase and destroys a section of mountain road to stop them in their tracks. Scared witless, the men offer to talk to save their hides.
We're members of the Barney Calhoun gang.
I kid you not, one of these fellows manages to slip and fall to his death in the crevice Clark created, while the other makes it safely to a telephone to warn Barney. Now Clark goes to the Calhoun gang hideout, but finds it recently abandoned. He gathers a clue there, pointing him to the Cargill auto plant. Here you see him arriving in time to stop the would-be bomber of the auto plant. This crook reveals that every one of the city's auto plants are going to explode in a cascading effect, pointing Supes in the right direction to save the day. He spots a man fiddling with some small machinery.
The Vandal, about to destroy the factories.
Superman seizes aloft a huge boulder and hurls it with a silent prayer.
In a play-for-play of usual events, Clark physically tortures his way into information from this latest crook about how a train's about to be derailed.
On towards a crushing doom speeds the Streamline Limited.
We already know Superman easily outraces the train, but how will he save the day this time?
Frantically, he waves a warning signal to the engineer, but the engineer waves back, believing it to be a friendly gesture.
Oh my.
As the final car races past,
Superman leaps and grabs hold, pulling it with all his might. In the drama, Clark's latest stoolie escapes, phoning Barney. Clark's super senses allow him to quickly find the man, then threaten him for Barney's location. However, Supes must first deal with the Langley mill. He arrives as the sabotage takes effect. The support for the Steel Dipper breaks, causing it and its molten contents to spew towards the workers below. Clark barely manages to brush everyone aside, catching the Dipper, keeping it from spilling out further. Here we see Superman give chase to the saboteur, the man who survived on that mountainside. But
the thug unexpectedly trips and he tumbles into a huge bowl of molten ore.
it's up to y'all if you want to count this one as manslaughter or not. I'm going no. Finally, free to deal with Barney. He sneaks in through the window and begins questioning a seemingly surrendering man.
What was your object in sabotaging industry?
Have a drink. I'll tell you anything you want to know.
Clark is totally unaffected by this poison. Clark gets violent now, threatening to force Barney to imbibe his own poison if he doesn't spill the beans. So he explains.
The man responsible is J.F. Curtis. A foreign nation has promised him important concessions if he'll wreck America's economic structure. I just work for him.
Ugh, another leg of this rat race. This issue reminds me of those quests in video games where you're supposed to give somebody an egg, but there's no egg for you to find, but you meet somebody who has an egg for you, but they lost the egg, and you meet the person who found the egg, and they'll only give it to you if you find them a ribbon. You know what I'm talking about. This is that. I hate this. Truly at the end now, since we are on the final page, Soups intrudes on Curtis, bringing Barney with him. Curtis uses some super weapon to kill Barney and threaten Clark. No thrills here, since Soups reliably tanks it. He does decide to execute the fellow, though, with his own electricity. Alright, now presenting Terror in the Truckers Union. Still in typical fashion, the story opens with Taylor tipping off Clark to a story.
Later, when Clark reaches the meeting.
For the Truckers Union, a fist fight breaks out, prompting Clark to interview Carlson, the man who socked a racketeer. Woo! Carlson merely confirms that notorious racketeer Snide intends to force his way into the Union. Clark shows up at Carlson's house for an interview, to find Carlson and his wife distraught over their daughter. She hasn't returned home from school. Just then, Carlson gets a phone call.
We've got your child. Whether she gets hurt depends on you. First, get rid of that reporter.
It seems they, whoever they are, have got eyes on the house. Scary stuff. Thanks to Clark's super senses, he's able to clock the situation and decides to return as Superman. When he exits, he spots the vehicle with Carlson's daughter, deciding to pursue it instead. He rescues the girl, sending the baddies careening into a telephone pole. Then he makes a quick pit stop to return her to Carlson before pursuing the thugs. In usual fashion, he scales the building the thugs inevitably enter to begin eavesdropping. The crooks fearfully tell Snide about this Superman, who, for a change, actually believes his underlings, sending them after Carlson. It's at this moment that
Superman taps at the window,
baiting Snide to come for a look and then pulling him through.
Mind coming out and keeping me company? It's lonesome out here.
With the situation under control, and everyone back in the room, Clark crosses his legs, then proceeds to use words, for once, to resolve the situation.
Fine. Now make yourself comfortable, everyone, because we're going to have an interesting little talk. This new racket of yours, cutting into the truck drivers' union, it interests me. So much, in fact, that I'd like to join company with you.
Oh, my bad. He's not using words. Well, he is kind of, but in a treacherous way. Convinced, Snide tells Superman if he kills Carlson, then Soups can join, much to Clark's dismay.
Just try and pull that trigger.
I will.
Bizarre, right? Clark doesn't explain anything to Carlson, just enters the house to attack him. Poor writing, or lack of wisdom, Clark? You tell me. This one's poor writing for me, but I don't know. Returning Carlson to Snide, Clark finds himself deeper in the weeds. Snide hands him a gun now, demanding he shoot Carlson dead before Snide's very eyes. The narration gaslights us a bit.
Obviously, Superman will not commit cold-blooded murder.
Oh, jeez. He ends up tossing Carlson out the window before dipping out after him a moment or so later. What's the deal here? Oh, this is unbelievable. We're supposed to believe that Clark is somehow fast enough to catch him. Not only that, but he has sufficient time to break Carlson's fall with the catch, leaving him entirely unharmed. Okay.
Let me go, you fiend. Haven't you caused me misery enough?
Don't get me wrong, my intentions are completely friendly.
Yeah, that's obvious, Clarksy boy. He does manage to convince Carlson that he could have killed him had he wanted to, and that he really is seeking to expose the racketeers based on that point. Back at the Racketeers HQ, Snide reveals his plan to make all drivers strike, paralyzing the food distribution system, nearly guaranteeing a blackmail on the truck company owners, akin to Action Comics #1 and not in a cool way. Soups invites himself into the home of a government official, this time the police commissioner. We have no idea if he'll believe Soups, but at least there's no conflict. As the Racketeers enact their plan descending on various truckers, the police emerge to combat them. Thankfully, the commissioner has recognized Supes' track record for some reason. However, Clark is an egotistical son of a bitch.
As the police patrol wagon drives toward the jail, a fantastic figure streaks into the driver's seat.
He just booted the copper out of a moving vehicle, and for what? To conduct his own brand of justice. He's like Judge Dredd here. Ugh. Oh my god, our story has gone off the rails. Clark actually rescues the criminals, bringing them back to Snide. There, he reveals.
I've decided to take over the leadership of this gang.
Indeed.
Within the next few days, the racketeers squeeze a huge illicit fortune from helpless food distributors.
What the hey, Superman? I guess his plan worked. Snide got so jealous he phones the police, giving them the lowdown on where to get evidence to end the racketeering. He intends to have everyone take the rap.
Well, I skip with the dough. Too bad for them.
When the cops inevitably show, Superman pretends to cooperate with them as if he's guilty-ish.
Snide's betrayed us. Well, I'll talk plenty, and implicate him too.
I guess his goal is to motivate the underlings to corroborate, but I feel like he can just drop the guys here. Instead, Supes busts out of there through the wall, as usual, to pursue Snide himself. He manages to spot him driving out of town.
Desperately, Snide presses the car to its limit, but it's evident that the Man of Steel will soon overtake him.
He'll never get that money. It goes to the bottom of the ocean with me.
Okay then. Wow. Okay. This is some serious heroism from Clark.
Superman cuts the water in the wake of the falling car. Seizing the machine underwater, he shoves it upward with a mighty heave. Out of the water and into the air it soars, with Superman in pursuit.
Our story ends with Carlson and Clark arriving at the police station where Superman had dropped off Snide, only to find him claiming,
The evidence against me is framed. I had nothing to do with the truck drivers' union.
My testimony will prove otherwise, Snide.
In the last panel, we get typically unfunny comments about Superman's absence. Well, Superman number 4 is certainly one of the issues of all time. Maybe the Luthor story is worth your time. Maybe. Alrighty, folks. The video title is not clickbait, we are really getting to the end now. Our penultimate story for this episode, Action Comics number 24, Carnahan's Heir, is the third to last Shuster and Siegel Superman story, period. Let's get into it. The story opens with a curious newspaper ad calling for Superman's assistance. Turns out that it was placed by Rufus Carnahan, a retired industrialist. Not to mention, he's one of the wealthiest men in town. Taylor sends Clark to get the scoop. Clark visits the mansion, mentioning he's a reporter. However, the butler immediately responds with violence, throwing Clark out the front door.
Cordial cuss, aren't you?
He returns shortly as Superman. The butler rejects him, still, so he forces his way inside. During the ruckus, Carnahan comes out of bed.
Jenkins, what's the meaning of this disturbance? Oh, you must go back to bed, sir. The doctor said, hang the doctor and his infernal orders. If I want to stretch my legs a bit...
Clark interrupts him, leaping up to the balcony. For some reason, Carnahan has no idea that this is Superman. While he and Supes chat, Jenkins phones the police. During the chat, Carnahan reveals that he's discovered his son Peter is not fit to be an heir. He thinks that it's Superman's job, or rather that Superman can straighten Peter out.
I've heard of your great sense of humanity. Assist me. I implore you. Straighten out my son's character so that he will be a man.
Clark refuses compensation and agrees to do this, by the way. Funnily enough, Peter arrives just before the cops do. He's a total pansy. When Jenkins informs him of the perceived danger in the situation, he responds quite negatively.
You go. What in blazes do you think you're being paid for?
Then,
As the policemen dash up the stairs, Peter Carnahan crouches back in a corner, overcome with terror.
Oh, I know I should go to Dad's assistance, but I can't help it. I'm scared.
Clark flees, leaving a hopeful Carnahan behind. There's also this strange scene of Peter on the phone with someone.
No, please don't do it. I'll be right over.
Soups then spots Peter fleeing the Carnahan mansion, tailing him to
The Purple Ore, one of the most notorious roadhouses in town. Now I'm positive he's in a jam.
Inside, Carnahan whines at the gambling boss to not tell Daddy. Clark overhears, noting how difficult reforming this man will be.
Later, when he enters the Daily Planet office as Clark Kent,
You can forget that assignment I gave you. Instead, pound out an obituary. Rufus Carnahan just died.
What?
Even later, Clark returns to the Carnahan mansion with the intent to interview Peter when Jake Brent cuts in.
Jake, what are you doing here?
Scram, you!
But I was in the middle of an interview.
Get out! I have strictly private business to transact with Carnahan.
From outside now, Clark uses his X-ray vision and super hearing to find Brent strong-arming Peter. He demands $100,000 instead of 10, or he'll inform the executors of Carnahan's will that Peter's a rotten gambler, robbing him of the inheritance. Yes! Clark almost gets caught for once. The butler spots him.
Why are you hiding behind that tree?
Why? Because
What's that?
a shot.
Peter's fear gets the best of him. It seems he's murdered Brent. Lucky Clark. By the time the two make it inside, they find Peter's vanished. Clark hightails it out of there in his vehicle, likely fearing the butler's eye, since it's only once he's away that he changes back to Superman.
A liar, a gambler, and now a murderer. There's nothing for me to live for, nothing. It's better that I die.
As if Clark would let that happen, Soups intends to bring Peter in for judgment. Interestingly, he swears.
I'm innocent, but they'll never believe me. I'll be railroaded to the chair.
Peter surrenders in court. When Clark visits him, he admits to aiming the gun at Brent, but not pulling the trigger. That somehow that gun fired on its own. In the trial, the DA accurately reviews the events of this comic up until...
Isn't it a fact that you deliberately shut down Jake Brent to shut his mouth? No!
Surely enough, the jury finds him guilty. Clark is left with no recourse but to bail Peter out as Superman, somehow. I do find it curious that Clark so readily believes this slimeball. There is a sufficient amount of evidence for his lack of character. Steel yourself. For some plot wankery, Superman discovers a bullet in the Carnahan murder room. What's more, he finds an open window, concluding that someone used Peter's circumstances as a cover to murder Brent. Clark calls the man in charge of the Daily Planet's morgue files, inquiring,
Who was Brent's bitterest enemy?
I take major issue with the idea that Clark somehow didn't hear the gunshot from outside the house, even ignoring the plausibility of the shooter managing to shoot at the identical moment as Peter. Ugh. Maybe it's good that we're near the end. In any case, Soups is now at Benny Farrell's, a rival gambler. In typical Golden Age fashion, our baddies just happen to be discussing Farrell's brilliant scheme right as Superman arrives to eavesdrop. He busts in, equipped with the evidence he felt he needed. Clark makes swift work of Farrell and his crew. I particularly like this quip.
Those bullets of yours seem to prefer your company.
The rest of the page shows Superman racing to Peter's execution site with Farrell in tow. But wait! He knows he can't make it there in time. And instead, Clark heads to
the powerhouse which supplies electricity to Metropolis and the prison.
removing a crucial piece of machinery. With the execution delayed successfully, Superman has plenty of time to deliver Farrell, who promptly admits to his own murder of Brent. This scene recalls to mind when Clark in his origin story showed the governor a signed confession. I mean, look how scared Farrell is. Those Eminata lines are ridiculous. I feel like there's this huge elephant in the room. First, let's think of how the cops are hunting Clark. They do recognize that he's an unknown element despite his seemingly just acts. And then, furthermore, in a situation like this, the person who Superman brings to the authorities is essentially soiling their britches. Yet, there's nary a mention that the confessions may be illegitimate, born of total fear. What do you all think about this seeming contradiction in the modus operandi of the police? The comic ends with Peter receiving the privilege of allocating his father's funds rather than possessing them directly. He is pretty good with this, and decides that he's going to open a home for underprivileged youths with the intent to mitigate their odds of making the sort of poor choices that he did. This would be really cool if he didn't want to direct the center himself with no experience doing anything in the social justice department. There is a conclusion to the comic that takes place 6 months later. You'll see that in the bottom panel, where Clark visits Peter and all does seem to be going well. Great! Let's move on to the last story of this video and our second to last Shuster and Siegel Superman tale. Here it is, folks, our last stint with Superman before he starts interacting with other heroes. Yeah, you know what that means, the formation of the Justice Society of America. By the by, Wayne Boring did ink support on this story, which is titled Luthor's Incense Menace. Say that 6 times fast.
An unexpected wave of unemployment hits the country as millions suffer from hunger. Business staggers, and the United States is faced with the worst depression in its history.
Taylor orders Clark to
Interview some of our city's leading men of finance for their opinions.
and we're off to the races. In a strange series of events, while Clark interviews the men, he notices time and again
A sickeningly sweetish odor of incense in the air.
After noting the odor in many offices, Clark comes right out and inquires about it.
On his way out, he hears this second man make a phone call, reporting Clark is suspicious of their mischief, whatever that might mean. In our very next scene, Superman happens to spot a bomber in the sky, ready to drop its bombs. He makes the save in 2 panels' time. This is definitely padding, right? This is padding. When Clark returns to question Gregory, that second man, he ends up framed for murder. Gregory's master is devious. Gregory has dialed the cops ahead of time, leaving Clark without an exit. Oh no. Cornered, Clark decides to jump out the window as Clark, and luckily has a nearby rooftop to land on, aiding plausibility to the whole endeavor. He uses the opportunity to re-enter the crime scene without heat now, where he helps the coppers realize it was a suicide. Here we see Clark revisiting a previous office, or rather attempting to, since Borden Mosley's receptionist literally tosses him out the door. I like that Shuster and Siegel started having the hench people or servants throwing Clark out of places, literally. I think it's a very funny trope. What do you guys think? Hilariously, Clark's recourse is to bust into the neighboring office.
I've had a premonition I may pass away at any moment. I'd like some insurance, therefore, at once.
But then when this receptionist looks away, he climbs out the window. Her boss gives her the day off, thinking that she is hallucinating. Incredible. Clark risks a lot in this issue, electing not to change outfits while continuing his investigation. When he gets inside, he hears that someone's coming, so he hides in a large cabinet. Oh no. It's mere moments before he is discovered.
Tearing himself free, Clark dashes toward the drape, from behind which the odor of incense emerges.
He mustn't touch that drape.
Stop him!
A replica of Luthor.
Clark's taken away by the men. These men immediately attempt to kill Clark Kent by throwing him down the elevator shaft. Brutal. Absolutely brutal. Yet, this is Superman, so he returns a moment later.
Hello, boys.
Moments later, after taking care of the dangerous men, Superman retires to a skyscraper to spy on Luthor's compatriots. Smart choice, since it seems Luthor's come to pick one of them up. Superman battles the autogyro Luthor is using to transport himself and Mosley, which causes Mosley to get ejected. Presumably, he had a parachute, although one was not drawn, since he moves on foot after a crash landing towards a secret mountain base, with Superman watching. Clark attempts to enter, but is stopped momentarily by a password-seeking door. Before he can even guess or simply tear the door down, a spike pit opens. Clark falls down safely. He's promptly bathed, though, in some type of acid, which, also does nothing to him. Now, deep inside, he finds
Mosley before a television screen.
he's talking stocks with Luthor. Superman charges in to destroy the machine. He destroys the base, escaping with Mosley. Recognizing Superman's heroism in saving his life, Mosley spills all the beans.
It's a narcotic incense. Luthor placed in the offices of prominent men throughout this nation, thus enslaving them.
Diabolical. Mosley takes Superman to a giant safe where he has purportedly kept the list of Luthor's victims. Stupidly, he slams the door shut with Supes inside.
Suffocate. Blast you.
Superman easily escapes, now grabbing Mosley.
You treacherous dog. I'd pulverize you. But you're not worth the effort.
Interestingly, the list of names was in there. Now Clark's in possession of it.
Tell me, where does Luthor hide out?
I don't know. But he's to meet his victim shortly at the Garrison Tower for a conference.
Under Superman's compulsion, Mosley telephones one of Luthor's underlings.
To report that he'll be present for the meeting. Then he leaps out the friggin' window.
I've betrayed Luthor. It's better that I die this way than fall into his hands.
Supes is able to fast fall like he's Fox from Melee, reaching the guy. He then tosses him back mid-air into the office. Oh my goodness. Nice throw, Supes. And now for something completely different.
Studying Mosley's figure closely, Superman contorts his features so that they are identical to those of the leader of industry.
Holy cats, bats, and rats. This is a huge upgrade to Superman's kit. I wonder how often we'll see this maneuver moving forward with other writers. Now, blending in at the meeting, Superman intends to release all these men from Luthor's control.
But as Superman stands, Luthor signals. Guards armed with ray guns step into the room from both sides.
Surprise! Luthor has been aware of Superman's plan this whole time, using this moment as an opportunity to pressure him into allegiance once again.
If you don't capitulate and join forces with me, I'll give the order to shoot down the others. Their deaths will be on your hands.
In response, Superman hurls the table at one line of guards and springs at the other line. As Superman whirls to attend to Luthor, an amazing thing occurs. The entire side of the building on which Luthor is seated hurtles away into space.
A plane, cunningly concealed in the building's framework.
The comic ends abruptly with Superman tackling the plane, then watching it fall into the water below.
The end of Luthor.
Yeah, right. The epilogue has Taylor informing Clark that all of
The men were successfully cured.
this was not the finest set of work by Shuster and Siegel. I actually find myself now questioning the degree of praise their work has received over the years. Don't get me wrong, I recognize its historical importance and how that contributes to the mythos regarding their work. Yet, I don't find Jerry's writing or Joe's art to be particularly fantastic or noteworthy outside of a few instances. We will need to see more contemporary comics before I'm willing to take the stance that they are mediocre or overrated, but for now, those are my thoughts and I am headed in that direction. I'd love to have a discussion on this matter because I don't want to be somebody who is dismissive of Shuster and Siegel's quality. As far as the specific quality stories go, I do think that the Ultra Humanite in Action Comics 21 and Luthor's introduction in number 23 are worth reading. The rest, you could take it or leave it. This episode of the Almanac Comicopia was brought to you by
Rachel!
our Lois Lane, our Ultra Humanite Aurora, myself, our resident Superman,
Slower than a speeding bullet, less powerful than a locomotive, unable to leap practically at all. It's a bird, it's a plane, it's me, Sam Katz.
and our fantastic narrator.
Dan Q here. Read more comics.
Our next episodes in this chapter will look at what happened to Bruce Wayne before he too joined up with other heroes. Even more exciting than that is that these videos will feature a very special guest. If you've been paying attention to these videos, you might know who it is. Until then, ta-ta for now.